evening. We are now going to be doing Megillah Esther recording. I want to share the questions, many questions. I don't hope to get very far. We have footnotes on the side, by the way, and the ones that I handed out. I want to ask some obvious questions and try to remove some of our preconceived notions about Megillah Esther, because we have many. Because in the book of Esther, we have many assumptions which are actually not in the text, which really makes the whole text Hester. The whole text is very hidden from us because it just looks like a story. At best, maybe a TV show or like a soap opera of something that's going to happen. And amazingly, surprisingly, that they never actually made a full feature movie of it. Hollywood never made anything about this story over here. Question, I don't know why. I know they just came out with Noah, and that was a disaster. And hopefully they'll stop there. Ten Commandments, yeah.
I've never seen it.
So, but we're going to look at this Megillah, and we a lot of us have assumptions, especially when you hang out with people who learn Midrashim all day. They have their own assumptions of what the text actually says, and we're going to try to just figure out the basic understanding of the text, and then, if I'm able, and if I'm capable, to share with you a mind-blowing concept that Rav Soloveitchik spends many minutes or pages on in this sefer, in this book that I have, if time is able, and if I am capable of actually sharing this idea. But we'll start off. So who is Achashverosh? Okay, we know that he's a king. From a textual standpoint, we simply know that he's a king. He has a big kingdom, and when he's there, in Shushan Habira is known as, I believe, Hamadan in Iran today. B'shna Shlosh L'malcho, in his third year of his reign, he makes a massive feast for everybody. For all of his officials and his servants, the army of Persia and Media, the nobles and officials of the provinces being present, where he displayed his riches. 180 days. Okay, so what is Achashverosh doing now? He is a king who has money. King that has money. In his third year of his reign, he has money. Again, we're asking you to leave the Midrashim away. The Gemara is a way of what you think you know or what you know. Just to get the basic text. Because we're trying to figure out who Achashverosh is and what this story is really all about. A 180-day party. And when these days filled up, which means at the end of 6 months, almost 6 months, he makes a great feast for all the people in Shushan, the capital. And what do they do in this feast? Now in this feast, it's seemingly more elaborate. Because in the previous one, he displayed riches of his glorious kingdom and the splendor of his excellent majesty for many days. In the new feast, the 7-day feast, there were hangings of white, fine cotton, blue, held cords with fine linen, purple upon silver rods, marble pillars, and couches of gold and silver on pavement of green. All these, now it's really describing the whole deal over here. The drinks are served in golden goblets, no two goblets alike, and royal wine in abundance according to the bounty of the king. Okay, and on top of that, the drinking was according to the law. Bashtiyak kadat einones kikeni sad hamelach. So the king has ordered all of his officials, al kol rav beisol lasos kirton ish ve'ish. So everyone should do according to every man's pleasure. This is the start of the story. So, tell me, what do we know about this story? Audience participation, please. What do we know about this story? What can you tell me about this story?
So far?
Like, this is the story of Esther. Okay, we're opening up. So, for moviegoers, it's like, we're just setting the tone. It's the music. It's the Gotham. It's the city. It's to be able to know what's going on. No, this is the story. This is the divine inspiration that we have over here that's teaching us a model lesson. So I'm asking you now, what do we learn from this story?
I think it just shows that this king is the powerful. Like, he has a lot of promises. Like, it's saying, like, you can control the world, but something is probably going to be above you.
What's going to be above you?
I'm saying Hashem. But
No, but that's not here yet. I just want to know what we have in the story. What we have, what you're saying, is a king who's displaying his power. Anything else? That's it. Just the king displaying his power, yeah? It's pretty elaborate verses to explain power. Just say he was really rich. I mean, filthy rich. Right?
He was so rich that he made one party for 180 days.
Right? And another party for 7 days, right? 187 days. So we don't need to know. We obviously are struggling into why you need 2 parties. Why the first one's 180 days. Okay, you're getting people from all over the world to visit. But he was so rich, he was filthy rich, right?
Shows that the king likes to party maybe more than he likes to rule.
He likes to party more than he likes to rule. It's a very good point. Okay, so we just read things at the end of these verses over here that something about drinking. Okay, so if you start from verse 7, Pasuk Zayin, and you go from Zayin, Ches, and Tes, those 3 verses, we're going to get some new insight into what this party is really all about. The drinks were served in golden goblets, no 2 goblets alike, and royal wine in abundance, according to the bounty of the king. And the drinking was according to the law. This was a Kiddush club, right? Right? This is the classic Kiddush club they have in shul. Only this was like, there was no prayer. It was just a Kiddush club. The drinking was according to the law without coercion. It's like the rabbi joined. So what's going on? No coercion. Why would I think there would be coercion over here?
To have a little bit of control. I mean, a little bit, I mean, when you say people are drinking in abundance, you think that they've just gone overboard. And maybe...
Oh, you're saying this is controlled drinking, or is this the other way around?
No. I think I'm saying it's the opposite
of control.
Control.
Oh, I got it.
Limits.
Okay, good,
yeah.
excellent.
Yeah.
No limits. Excellent answer. Okay, there's no limits over here, and we're not forcing you to do anything. Okay, there's almost no rulership that's going on over here. Okay, remember you're a king. You want to be big. You want to be powerful. Kings set laws and rules, and here we're telling you, forget the laws. Just drink to your heart's content. Why? Because that's what the king ordered al kol rav beiso, to order anyone over his household to do what anybody wanted. Why does this define the king Achashverosh? This is the end of that paragraph there. La sos kirtzon ish ve'ish, they should do what every man wanted.
He's a loose cannon.
Okay, so what? He's letting let this party go. It almost sounds like you could be tyrannical here. If you wanted to attack people, you could do it. You could do whatever you want. Everyone's drinking, and it's like days of decadence over here. Whatever happens, happens. Right? Whatever happens in Shushan stays in Shushan, right? Hashiyaka deidon eino nes. The drinking is legal now. And there's no coercion, which is hard to understand anyway, because that's how the king demanded on Rav Beiso, on all the households, that you should do whatever people want you to do. What are we being set up for over here? We're going to meet a king, Achashverosh, who, as we've discussed in the past, wavers back and forth, pretty erratic. I remember he kills his wife, then he kills his the guy who suggested to kill his wife. Okay, so we know murder is not something that's really bothering him as much because he's a king. And if we go to our classic kings, they have a tremendous level of rulership over here. But this story of this party over here is Megillus Esther. Right, remember, there's going to be a lot of drinking in this entire party. We're going to drink now. 180 days, 7 days we're going to drink. Then there's going to be 2 parties of drinking that are going to be later on, right? And these drink parties, and what do Big Son and Seresh, Big Son and Teresh, what do they want to do? What do they want to do? They are the chamberlains of the king who want to kill the king by poisoning him in his drink. Right? This is one of the things that they want to do. So now, what we have in our story is a king who's wealthy. And he invites everyone from all over to take part in a party to show them what he's got. A mishteh. And then another party for 7 days with everybody in town. Where are the Jews in this? Here's one. Here's one now.
The Jews are at the party.
The Jews are at the party. Show that to me, please.
Well, it doesn't say.
Doesn't say. It doesn't.
Hashem is also present.
Okay, so what we're looking at is simply on the text of the Megillah itself. The Jews are at the party, but we don't see that here anyway. There's not mention of a Jew so far. Not only that, in this whole story over here, Vashti, now we continue on verse number 9. Vashti makes a party as well. A drinking party for the ladies. And on the 7th day, when the king was inflated or overfilled with wine, so again, he's been, I guess, training himself to be drunk. So when this is happening, he says to Mehuman, he says to all these Persian names, Mehuman, talks about all of these sarisim, all of these castrated eunuchs who are working for him, who are serving the king, to bring Vashti before him with her crown of grandeur to show what she's like, because she's beautiful. Okay, Vashti's not interested, and we know the basic level of the story here. The king therefore became very angry. V'chama so ba'aravo, and his anger is flaring up. So, what's happening over here? What's happening over here is there's an underlying story that's happening over here. Can you get me, and I didn't get it myself, but can you find for me what the modality is of this party? What's the goal of this party over here?
For the king to show off.
So it looks like it's just about... Okay, so for sure that's the part he wants to do right now. He wants to show off his riches. Why does he want to show off his riches? Who cares?
Oh, because he wants to show that he's the ruler of everything.
So what's the best way to rule?
With an iron fist.
With an iron fist. Not with your money.
He wants people to like him.
He wants people to like him.
There, that's good. Yeah.
He wants people to like him. What's the reason why you show people the nice things that you have? So they should like you?
We can agree
No,
with
they're
what
not going to like you.
They're not going to like you. So they want what you have.
They covet. They're jealous of you.
Jealous.
So we know, okay, so jealousy. So now, why am I showing you these things? I want you to see that what I have here is not that I'm just a tyrannical ruler. I appreciate the fineness of life. I appreciate all the goodness that life has to give. I'm not mean and diabolical. I appreciate nice things. I like nice flowers. I like a nice sunset. I like golden chairs. I like a beautiful wine and certainly beautiful women. Right? So when I'm the king over here, I can rule through tyranny, or I can take a different approach in the way I rule right now. He's going to move it to tyranny, but he's setting the stage. He hasn't done it yet. But he wants to show everybody what's really happening over here. Take a look at what I have. Okay, take a look at what I have. Why? Because I have it all. Okay, so but part of that I have it all is you want this. Some people want rulership, and some people want wealth. They want what the other person has. He's setting a stage for something bigger. Okay, the king. Remember, the Jews are not mentioned yet. We don't have a single Jew in this story over here. The king conferred with the experts who knew the times. We're just reading that parenthesis over here. For such was the king's procedure, turned to all who knew law and judgment. Well, law and judgment? You're a king. What do you care? Right? But that's what the verse says in Pasuk Yud Gimel, verse number 13. What happened? He spoke to those wise people who know the times. What, you care about what's happening in the news? You care what people are going to say about you? You don't care at all. This is the way it works. Vakarov elav, those that were close to him, Karshan Shesha Admasa Tarshish Meres Marsan and Mamuchan, 7 officers of Persia and Media. So these 7 officers, he goes to confer with them and says, "Hey, tell me, what's the rule? What do you do here? What should I do with her? I mean, she's such a whatever." Says Mamar HaMelech. She didn't do what I conveyed you to, what I told her to do. What's the story? I told my chamberlains, that's the word over here. Sarisim is the English word for chamberlains or eunuchs. Eunuchs, not the programming language, right? Mm-hmm. So he says over to the. What should I do to this? What do I do to this woman over here? I'm giving up, right? Okay. Okay, so So Mamuchan, so I'm asking the obvious question. You're the king, you run the show over here, you got this lavish party, you're drunk to the hilt, your wife's not showing up. Oh, I'm really angry. What should I do? What should I do? This is really disturbing. What kind of king is this? What's the deal here? Okay, that's why I want to look at the simple reading without looking at anything else. Okay, let's not look at any Gemaras here. So it's just simple reading is that he's bothered, he's really angry, so he goes to his chamberlains and says, guys, what's the deal? Okay? So Mamuchan declared, no, the queen has not only disgraced you, the king, but also all the officials and all the people in the province that are in the land. Okay? You've disgraced the people. Not the men. You've disgraced the people. Shim 17 over here. The deed of the queen will come to the attention of all women, making their husbands contemptible in their eyes by saying, King Achashverosh commanded Vashti, the queen, to be brought before him, but she didn't come. Really? I mean, I'm not buying the story. For me, it's just very hard. Yeah? You buy the story? I mean, do you have any, can you give me any other example? Let's say you had another diabolical king who was, I don't know, in Korea, let's say. Right? Good example? Is it a comparable example?
North or south?
North, yeah?
I said, this king was Russian. Drunk
Sounds Russian, right?
70 days.
So, it didn't say they had no vodka here. No, it was only wine, so it can't be Russia. Right? Arak, right? So now, so Mamuchan suggests that this is bad news. Bad news for everybody here because the women are going to revolt against their husbands. I mean, I really don't see the actual parallel over here, but they're going to revolt.
Bad example.
Huh?
Bad example.
That's what it seems to be. We always read it's always a bad example of what she's showing. First of all, don't forget he appointed his chamberlains to go over to her and to come. She says, "No, I'm not coming." They come back and say, "She's not coming." What? And now the whole world knows that she's not coming? It's 7 people that know what's happening over here. Mamuchan is not pleased with this. Again, his goal is to knock out Vashti. We don't know why, but his goal is to get rid of her. We don't know, from the simple reading, we don't know that Mamuchan is Haman, but as we know from the Gemara, Mamuchan is Haman. But leaving that deeper meaning out there, basically, on this day, princesses of Persia and Media who have heard the queen's deed will cite to all the king's officials, and there will become much contempt and wrath. So, if it pleases the king, let there go forth a royal edict from him, and let it be written into laws of Persia and Media that it will not be revoked, that be not revoked, that Vashti never again appear before King Achashverosh, and let the king confer her royal estate upon another who is better than she. Okay? So far, nothing new.
But here it doesn't explain who the Vashti is, right? That she is a royal.
We know nothing about Vashti. We just know that she made
for us to make any assumption.
All we know is that she made a feast for the ladies with drinking, and now she doesn't want to come to the king. And at this point, it's not fair. So let not Vashti ever show up again. She'll be uninvited, mafia style, right?
I thought that he kills her. I thought that
Yeah, but it's never said anywhere in the text.
Oh, okay.
The text never mentions anywhere that she's just uninvited.
Got it.
Right?
Mafia style.
Right? It's an amazing thing. Like that's the part which I don't know if I shared with you once before. It has to bother you that it never mentions what happens to Vashti.
Yeah.
It has to bother you because if this is a child story and it's a book for children, so you'd never see anything about murder or killing at all. And then when Haman comes on the scene, let's wipe them out, destroy them, kill them, murder them, right?
But the Chumash is not any different. Once that role is played, like Abraham, he lives a lot longer than, after Yitzhak and so on and so on.
And then it says he dies.
You don't hear about him.
And it says he dies. But it says he dies.
Fine, but,
Everybody dies.
well, it doesn't mention that.
Exodus mentions like
He
everybody
does say
dies
he
there.
dies.
Everybody dies. What happened in the story? Again, if you want to tell me that
But
she's
her role
getting...
is done, basically.
No, but his role's not done until we get to the end of that, right? So what happens over here? Let's just finish, and then you prove me your point, okay? Then when the king's decree, okay, Then, when the king's decree, which he shall proclaim, shall be resounded throughout the kingdoms, great though it be, I can't read this English, all the wives will show respect to their husbands, great and small alike. Okay? So here's the deal. We're going to use Vashti as an example. You mess with me, you mess with my country. Right? So we're going to kill you, and now every wife is going to think, oh man, I better not. If my husband tells me to come, I better come, otherwise he'll kill me. Okay? So, interesting, yeah?
In the Hebrew text, does it say when he summoned her that he summoned her with no clothes?
No, nothing.
Just wearing the crown?
Nothing. Keser Malchus, the crown of glory, crown of kingship.
So the text just says he summoned her to come wearing a crown.
Wearing the crown of kingship to show the other nations and the nobles her beauty because she is good to look at. Okay, that's important that you notice that point. Her beauty because she's good to look at. Right?
So she's never been seen before?
Well, the Gemara is going to tell you that he wanted her to come naked. Right?
So,
but now he's having this feast for 180 days. He's only married 3 years, it seems. I'm not sure how long he's married, but we know he's been in the kingdom now, and now he's inviting everybody over because you need to see who Achashverosh's wife is. Okay, boys, you need to see what this is like, right? For some reason, not just that she's beautiful. I want you to see her beauty because she's good to look at. Ki tovas marehi. I'll give you a hint. Tovas marehi. You have a chumash? You have a chumash, right?
I do have a chumash.
You have a chumash. Only Russian?
Russian.
No Hebrew?
Hebrew.
He's closer, sorry.
Yeah, I know. That's okay.
Oh, I need yours. This is Shmos. Right?
This is
Second one.
Torah.
Yeah, second one. Okay.
Yeah.
I need the full. Yeah, please.
That's her point. It just sounds offensive just to take just because she's beautiful to take a look at. This is offensive.
Isn't it?
Point. It is very offensive.
Of course.
That means she was the first feminist who's writing for her rights.
Yeah, and her right.
A human being.
But her reign didn't last very long as a feminist. Right?
Doesn't matter. She was the first one.
Well, she's not the first. There have been others, but yes.
It's interesting how Esther is like the opposite. I mean, he says that Vashti was beautiful because it was who you saw, and Esther, like, her beauty's hidden. She was beautiful, but also there was another thing where...
Good.
Yeah.
So that's going to be part of his plan because he's not going to... You're making an excellent point. Part of his plan is he doesn't... Whenever you see Esther and you want to figure out who Esther is, you look at the opposite of Vashti.
Yeah.
Anything that Vashti represents, he says, not this time around. For number 2, she's going to have to be very different, right? As we discussed yesterday in one of the classes, that one of the things that Esther doesn't do is she doesn't say where she's from. She never mentions. She never mentions where she's from, and thank you. And what's the reason? So you would think we know why she doesn't mention it, but why is Achashverosh excited about that? Because he doesn't want a queen that has any yichus, that has any nobility. He wants a queen that comes from nowhere. I just want to pull up a verse over here and let's see if we have it. It's not the exact words here, so it's not a good quote. The quote by the tree of knowledge, when Eve eats from the tree, it says, "Vateresha," and the woman saw ki tov ha'etz lamachal, the tree is good to eat. V'chi ta'ava hu le'inayim. Ta'ava is, the English will translate it probably pleasing or desirable, delight to the eyes. Ta'ava is something that you desire. A desire that a person has for the eyes. V'nechma v'haskiel, and it's good to make a person wise. Fine. One of the aspects over here is that it's something that's pleasing to look at. There is another one that we have later on.
Sarah?
I don't know if she is in that level. Yisha Yefas Mar'eh. And what? That's Yisha Yefas Mar'eh, Sarah. So this is Tovas Mar'eh, which I think is by Rivka. I think that comes down to Rivka. Either way, I don't have a valid proof on that. But So I just want to back up over here. Fine. Okay. So he wants to know what he's supposed to do with her. Then when the king's decree we shall proclaim, it shall be resounded out all his kingdom, the great there will be. All the wives shall show respect to their husbands, the great and small alike. So it's also kind of bizarre over here that Achashverosh is presenting this. He's concerned. I mean, through Memuchan, they are concerned about this new feminist movement. Right? Like, why are they concerned about this feminist movement? Suddenly, one woman makes one comment, and now we're concerned that there's going to be an entire upheaval and it's going to be a feminist movement. So this way, let's kill her and put an edict out that no woman should ever go against her husband. Like, this is so bizarre. Why would I connect the dots to think that one thing is going to happen to the next? The proposal pleased the king. Such a good idea. And the officials. And the king did according to the words of Memuchan, and he sent letters into all the king's provinces, to each province in its own script, and to each people of its own language, to the effect that every man should rule his own home and speak the language of his own home. Basic meaning of that is, if you married someone who's not from your tribe or wherever you're from, if I'm American and you're Russian lady, so in our home we're speaking English. If I'm Russian and you're American, in our home we're speaking Russian. That's it.
English or American?
Yeah, okay. It's okay. Okay. So lihiyos kol ish sorer beveso medaber kilshon amo. That each man should be leader of his household and he should speak the language of his nation. This is the letter that went out. Wow, heavy letter. Okay? After these things, his anger subsides. He remembers Vashti, all she did and everything. And the king's pages, the young king's lad, says, we need to find another queen for you. Okay, let us appoint everyone. Fine, I'm not going to go past this part of the story, or at least not for now. Okay, so we have chapter 1, which is by far, I think, one of the most difficult chapters to understand the entire book over here, because it seemingly has no relevance to the overall story. Because really the story is about the Jewish people, and they're not even spoken about yet at all. There's going to be the first time the Jews are mentioned. They're when? When's the first time the Jews are mentioned?
When they need to fast?
No, way earlier.
Haman.
Before Haman. Before Haman.
When they announced Mordechai.
When they announced Mordechai.
Right.
Right? When they announced Mordechai. So, that is going to be in chapter 2. Ish Yehudai b'Shoshana b'Rosh Shemo Mordechai ben Yair ben Shimi ben Kish Ish Yemini. Ish Yehudi. There's a Jew. There's a Jewish guy. His name is Mordechai. The Jewish people are not going to be mentioned until Haman comes around and says we want to kill the Jews. Right? So this whole story now, where we don't have any mention of the Jewish people, and now we're going to introduce the concept that the king is now looking for a new wife, and then suddenly Mordechai comes on the scene. It's an odd scenario over here. It's an odd segue. Right? Can you imagine this? It's like, imagine this story over here. You have the king, you got his chamberlains, like, okay, we need to find a new wife. No problem. New wife, searching around, everyone's going around, and suddenly they just grab this man Mordechai, put him in over here. Hi, I'm Mordechai. I come from, I was exiled in Jerusalem with the Nebuchadnezzar and also the king Yechania, and that's what I'm doing over here. Okay? Hey, little cameo from Mordechai.
How he can sell his wife?
Well, we're going to see what that's Esther, yeah. Well, it's like this weird cameo of Mordechai introduced, like in the middle of this harem story, or harem, however you pronounce it. How do you pronounce it?
Harem.
Harem. No, I don't know.
Harem?
Harem.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Because of the Russian accent.
Yeah, I know. Ha or hey or ha?
Hair rum.
Harem. Harem.
Yeah, hair rum.
Okay.
And when it says that the Jews never mentioned, it says that all the people. So that means all the people were there. If that would be somebody excluded, it would say all people except some.
Good. I can accept that the Jews are inferred over here. If this is a story about the annihilation of the Jewish people, I would like some information. The Gemara has this question. I think it's of, I'm trying to remember who is it, or Shimon Gamliel, or Reish Lakish. I have a document on that, I'll tell you. Well, I guess I don't.
But it probably was trying to show that they're the same as the other people, so they're assimilated.
You're giving me logic from what you learned. You got that? You're giving me logic from what you learned. Because they're not mentioned anywhere over here. It's a Gemara in Megillah, Rishon Bar Yochai. Rishon Bar Yochai was asked by his students, why were the Jewish people destined to be annihilated by Haman? So Rishon Bar Yochai says to them, you tell me the answer. So they say, what's the reason why? They didn't say that. Okay, close. But they didn't. But we don't see any assimilation here, by the way. You ever notice that? We don't see anything. Nothing. Anti-Semitism. Okay, that's not the answer they originally give. The Gemara seems to say, or at least this part of the Gemara says, why were the Jews supposed to be annihilated? Because they took the nena misudas Achashverosh. They took part of the meal of Achashverosh.
Oh.
It's not here.
Yeah.
Right? We don't see it here, but that's what you're telling me. If everybody was in it, so were the Jews. Right? So now everybody's in it. Okay? But the Gemara goes on. The Gemara says, so he says, tell me. They say, Pnei shenena misudasha shel oso Russia. They took part in this meal of this wicked king. Okay? So Rishon Bar Yochai responds to him. He says, if that's so, then who should be destroyed? Only the Jews of Shushan. Let's get this straight. There was a 180-day party. Who was at that party?
Everyone.
No, not everybody was at that party. There was a 7-day party and a 180-day party. In the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast for all of his officials and his servants, the army of Persia, Media, the nobles and officials of the provinces being present. And when those days were filled, the king made a week-long feast for all the people who were present in Shushan, the capital.
For the 7 days.
7 days, the whole town was invited. For 180 days, it was only nobles in the army. That's it. Nobody else was there. Okay, so the Gemara says, why were they supposed to be punished? Because they took part of the feast. Which feast? Can only be the 7-day feast, not the 180-day feast. So Rishon Bar Yochai responds and says, if that's so, we have a problem. Then only the Jews of Shushan should be annihilated. But nobody else. There shouldn't be a threat upon the rest of the Jewish people. Right? Makes sense?
Well, but throughout history, the few...
the few are causing it for everybody else.
Everybody.
Okay. But that's it. His point responding. The Gemara has an issue. The Gemara says, they say, why were they supposed to be destined to be destroyed? It says, you tell me. You tell me. I just asked you the question. Which means it's not clear. It's not clear anywhere in the Megillah what's going on over here. Everything is underpinned over here. There's nothing that's direct. So he goes on, and he says, then it should be the people in the other provinces should not be killed at all. So they said, fine. Rishon Bar Yochai, you answer the question. Why are they supposed to be destroyed? So he says as follows, because they bowed down to a deity. So which one did they bow down to? Find it to me in the verse. You can't. Okay? I'll show you what you're looking for, and then you'll tell me where it is. Keep in mind, at this point, the party's over, looking for a queen, finds the queen, switching to chapter 3, okay?
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, show it to me. Verse 1 says, after these things happened, King Achashverosh promoted Haman. For no apparent reason, he appoints this evil guy. And advanced him, he sets a seat above all the officers with him, and the king's servants in the king's gate would bow down. All the king's servants at the king's gate would bow down and prostrate themselves before Haman. For this is what the king had commanded concerning him. But Mordechai would not bow down nor prostrate himself. So it points out to you that he is a king's servant. Mordechai is a king's servant, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody but Mordechai of the king's servants would bow down to Haman. Why are they bowing down to Haman?
King's order.
Because the king said, you need to bow down to this guy. What? Why are we bowing down to this guy? I bow down to Achashverosh. Bowing down to Haman?
He made him important, the king.
Yeah, but again, if you are Achashverosh and you run the show, why would you make people bow down to Haman? He's your second in command. Right? Bow down to me. King doesn't really care about being bowed down to. but Haman obviously does. So Mordechai does not bow down or prostrate himself. So the king's servants at the king's gate said to Mordechai, why do you disobey the king's command? Finally, when they said this to him day after day, and he did not listen to them, they told Haman to see whether Mordechai's words would avail, for he had told them that he was a Jew. Now's their introduction. I'm a Jew. That's why I don't bow down. When Haman himself saw that Mordechai did not bow down and prostrate himself before him, then Haman was filled with rage. Vayamale Haman chema. Okay, that rage seems to be different than the rage that Achashverosh had on the previous day. V'chamaso va'arabo was burning inside, and here was malei chema. Okay, fine. However, it seemed contemptible to take him to lay hands on Mordechai alone, for they had made him known to him all the people. For they had made known to him the people of Mordechai. So Haman sought to destroy the Jews, the people of Mordechai, who were throughout the entire kingdom of Achashverosh. Okay, so we're introduced to diabolical, evil person number 2 over here. The reason why the Jewish people are going to be killed is because of what? Because one man didn't bow down to Haman.
That's pretty haughty.
Pretty haughty, right?
It's not clear from the text why. He just says.
He said, I'm a Jew. That's he said, I'm a Jew.
So he bows down to higher power. No, the second command.
Well, all we know is he doesn't bow down to this person. We know, I'm a Jew, I will not bow down to you. So the Gemara will tell us it's because he used to carry a little effigy, some type of whatever, not a cross, but he had something on a little mini Haman. Right? He had a little mini Haman on his neck, and he wanted the people bow down to him to consider him like a deity. So somehow Haman at this point is making himself into a deity. The only reason why we'd have that assumption is because of the fact that he's making people bow down to him. Not Achashverosh, only Haman. So the dictatorship of Haman is vastly different than that of Achashverosh over here.
What is the story about Haman and Mordechai when, like he saved his life in the desert there and all the stuff, and he says, "I'm going to be your slave forever."
Okay, none of it's here.
No.
What
Where is it coming
mean?
from? Do you know?
Is a god.
A god. He made a god around his neck. He made himself into like he was a god.
Idol.
Oh,
What do you call it? What do you call it in Russian?
Like
Idol.
the one chick.
What? Idol. Yeah, okay.
He was wearing a pendant of himself.
Magidor.
That's what the Gemara says. But in the verse over here, we don't see anything like that at all. You know, there's nothing going on over here. Okay, at this point, fine. So the Gemara goes on to say that the reason why this happens because they bowed down to the image, right? Wouldn't see what image they're bowing down to over here. Who else is bowing down? I don't even see Jews bowing down over here. It's only the king's servants that are bowing down, except for Mordechai. So they bow down to him. Rashi has a different interpretation. I'm just saying it in the simple meaning. They bow down to the image. They said to him, then why did God forgive them if they deserve to be destroyed? So he says, they only pretended to worship. They weren't really bowing down. And so too God only pretended to kill them. And he really wasn't going to exterminate them.
Early morons.
Whatever it is. So we don't have an answer as to what's going on over here. Right now, in our story, there's no reason for the Jews to be annihilated. There's no reason for anything else. The plausible explanation is going to somehow come down to, simply like you said, anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism. But it needs something to start. Someone needs to spark that anti-Semitism. Whether it's assimilation, right? You said assimilation. Someone needs to spark that, but it's not mentioned over here. So that's why we're struggling in this. Okay? So now, I've laid out a stage for you of a lot of unknowns. Okay? You with me? We don't have the ultimate answers for any of this yet, but we should be bothered that this whole text is extremely hidden from us. And there's a lot of things that don't really make any sense. And of course, the Gemara is going to unravel all of these things. I'm not going to go with that approach now of the Gemara. We're going to take another approach entirely. But I can end it, of course, those that want to go. But this is the beginning. Okay?
Thank you, Rabbi.
This is really the beginning. Okay? The beginning is what I'm just going to start laying down the seeds for us to understand, and hopefully we'll be able to continue next week. But the beginning is telling us about a man. His name is Achashverosh. He is somehow a haughty king. I don't know if any other king was any different in his time or for 1,000 generations before or after him. It sounds like a classic king scenario. Some massive ego complex, willing to do whatever he wants and kill anybody. So why do we need an hour story? What's the benefit in our story? So here comes some thoughts from Soloveitchik. Now he has a big essay on this idea. I want to share with you just a couple of points that I didn't present. I mentioned the other day on the WhatsApp. What's puzzling over here is that when Haman decides he wants to kill the people, everyone's okay with that. The whole world's okay with that. Oh, kill everybody? Exciting. Something new to do. Right? And they're willing to go with it. They're willing to go and annihilate the Jewish people. And then there's a massive battle that ensues because the Jewish people have to protect themselves. And everyone's trying to kill them, but instead they kill everybody else. Right? Why are the people somehow not bothered? This is the question that he presents. Why are the people doing this? So, what he's going to present is that there's going to be tremendous parallels between this story and the Holocaust. And everything that led up to the Holocaust and everything that preceded and was through the Holocaust and post the Holocaust. And the Holocaust is a paradigm. And the story of Esther is a paradigm of all societies. And that's why this opening chapter is an extremely important chapter for a person to study. So you have to understand, when you open up the book of the Torah, and you open up the first chapters over there, and you see in Perek Daled, Gimel, and you see the story of Adam and Chava and the snake, and this whole story, we're like, what is this about? And we say, that's the paradigm of man, and that's the struggle of mankind in this world. This story is going to be the same thing. This story is going to lay out for us how the way people act in this world, and what happens when they don't actually follow God. When there's no God mentioned anywhere over here, we're going to see what happens. See, it's interesting, and if you look at the earlier books of Kings and the like, even in the bad and evil rulers, Nebuchadnezzar had a recognition of God. There was a recognition of God. The Gemara says about Nebuchadnezzar, because of the fact that he took a few steps to stop the courier from sending the letter because it was not written properly, because God was presented second or third as opposed to being first. So because of that merit, Nebuchadnezzar had the opportunity to be able to destroy the Jewish people. Had he taken one more step, there would be total annihilation. This is one of the reasons why we take our 3 steps back into Shemona Esrei, is because each of those 3 steps back are to counteract the 3 steps that Nebuchadnezzar took to show the glory of God. And yet, he understood that there was a concept of God. But you go down a few generations from that, and there's no mention of God, not in the book, not just simply because God is hidden, but because the kingdom of Achashverosh and the people of his time have nothing to do with God. Nobody does. Not the Jews, not anybody else. We don't even see in the story over here, except for that thing about bowing down to Haman, you don't see anything about pagan worship at all. Right? There's nothing here about pagan worship, nothing about God. There's nothing about any service whatsoever. Does that not bother you? It bothers me. Nobody else? One other person. Okay? Then the entire story over here, it's a book. It's a book of Tanakh. Nothing mentioned about God in it, but nothing mentioned about idol worship either. And throughout Tanakh, it's always idol worship here and there and all these things. Not here in this book. It's got to blow your mind. Or come close to it, yeah? Okay, so now, it's figured out yet? Did you figure it out? No, you didn't figure it out, yeah? Okay, so first of all, I just want to...
The second part, when it talks that they're not worshipping something, because Ashavarosh, he mentioned somebody else, he put somebody else there.
He put somebody else as someone to worship?
He doesn't consider himself...
He doesn't care at all. He doesn't care. He's not interested in this.
Yeah.
But even Mordechai, when he answers, I'm a Jew...
Right?
He doesn't say, I serve Hashem.
Mm-hmm.
He just says, I'm a Jew.
I'm a Jew. I don't do this, I'm a Jew. So interesting. It's fascinating.
So what were out with the kids who were fasting and praying? What were they studying in school? Was it not? It wasn't Torah and...
What, during that time?
Yeah.
No.
History?
historically, you're right. They were obviously learning, studying Torah, doing all these things. But in the history book, if you will, in this book of Ruach HaKodesh, Divine Inspiration, you don't see any of this mentioned here. Which means a lesson is being taught to tell you about society as a whole during the time of Achashverosh.
But because he said I'm a Jew, he already like opposite himself from their beliefs. That means they already, is that right?
You're on something over here, right? I'm a Jew, which means I'm different.
It means I'm different, and I have a different beliefs, and I have different God, and so on, so on. So that means, hypothetically speaking, he already said, I believe, and you don't.
Well, but he never said it. All he said was one word.
Say I'm a Jew, it means
You should know what you mean.
right. You should know what you mean.
You're right.
We have lots of Jews today that don't believe in God.
That doesn't matter.
No,
At that time, the Jew meant you believe in God, isn't it?
It doesn't say.
Well,
Doesn't matter.
you're right. You're right. You're right of what you're saying. Just like he's right that they were sitting and studying Torah. All these things are right. It's just not here. Not in here on purpose.
It's not supposed to be like literally said. It meant.
Why is Vashti literally not killed over here? It just says, and so they did according to what he commanded. Why not? Oh, no off with your head, no send her in the river, no. It just says, Vashti's never walking into this palace again. And so the king agreed, and therefore you never hear from her again. It's not mentioned.
But
Why?
it's mentioned later when he remembers Vashti.
What does he remember?
Because it's not supposed to be like straight.
After these things, when the king's anger subsides, he remembers Vashti, all she did, all that was decreed against her.
I think when there's no belief system, regarded, when we were talking about idol worship, when there's no idol worship, when there's no belief system, I think anything can be seen as the truth. Anything can be. There's.
Okay, so Janet is throwing us on a major path over here. Because there's a system that's happening that the Megillah wants us to know something, not just historically, but this is going to be for generations to come. Something's going to happen generations to come that's going to let you know that if you see another society like this, then heaven help you. Okay? Because you're going to see what's going to happen from a society that does this. A society of Achashverosh. I'm going to quote you a few lines from Rav Soloveitchik over here. The king and Haman, what was interesting over here, how is it possible the same friends who a week or two before were drinking together and feasting together, paying compliments to each other, because like you said, everyone's there, should not raise their voice in protest when Haman declares to go and kill all the Jewish people? Hey, I did have wine with you. Next week you're mine, or next year, whatever, I'm going to kill you, right? And then what happens? The king and Haman celebrated, right? The king and Haman sat down to drink, and the city of Shushan was Navocha, which could mean depressed, perplexed. The king and Haman celebrated by feasting on wine. Okay, many questions arise. Okay, so he says, as far as the story of 2,400 to 2,500 years ago is concerned, it was just a conspiracy which was never implemented. But in the 1940s, it was not just a conspiracy, it was a reality. I don't know if I shared this with you before. So he says, I read somewhere that in the dignitaries of the Nazi Party, after they had completed their work of the famous Wannsee document dealing with the final solution of the Judenfrage, they feasted until dawn on frankfurters and beer. Achashverosh liked wine, they liked beer. Okay? So what's going to happen in the story is that at this stage, it didn't happen yet. At this stage of the king's palace, it didn't happen yet. But as Haman comes on the scene, Haman is Amalek, the Nazis are Amalek, they're going to duplicate the same mannerisms, are going to be duplicated the same way that Haman did. But it's what came before Haman that is really eye-opening over here. Before Haman came on the scene was this whole story of the party, of Vashti, the new queen, and everything else. Okay? What is this? So I'm just going to give you the first part, which I don't think was mentioned yet. But basically, the first part is that what Achashverosh wants to display over here is he wants to display what we call hedonism, the highest form of physical desires, right? Hedonism, or what he calls over here, the word that he used over here is orgiastic man. Okay, The word that he used over is orgiastic man. Man who just wants to have everything. Everything physical, no matter what he wants, right? He calls it, it could be someone who wants gold, someone who wants sexual things, food, or anything like that. Here's be it money, real estate, lust, sex, delicious food, social prominence, the so-called publicity. Whenever unlimited desire rises, orgiastic man emerges in the arena. Okay, that's the terminology over here. So what Achashverosh wants to give the society here, before he can bring Haman onto the scene, he can't bring him on yet. Before he brings him onto the scene, he needs to create a society that people are indulged with themselves and their own desires. So he has, first I'm going to have a party with all the big provinces, because I want you now going to take this back to your places. 180-day party. I want you to see the riches, how much I have. I am into it all. I own and I love it. I love all physical things that exist within the world. Okay, this is what he wants. I want all of these things. And then he has the next party. And this party, by the way, this next party, has all the wine you could possibly ask for. There's no coercion. There are no laws right now. Because I'm not going to set up laws. I want to create a society that has no laws, because this society is going to be a society that's only focused on their physical desires. When you're focused on your physical desires and you keep feeding your physical desires, what happens after they're fed and fed and fed? You have no desire. Right? You're going for something else. You're going for something else. You keep going for something else, right? Like, you think about it. If you watch movies all day, right? If you watch movies all day for 3 weeks straight, or forget it, 5 days straight, and now you get in front of your TV, you go, what do I watch? I don't really know. I'll watch, but I'm not really in the mood to watch anymore. You're not in the mood for it anymore. You'll do it because you feel like you have to and there's nothing else to do. But you're now so depressed, you have nothing else you're going to do, but you're not enjoying it anymore. If I gave you a Shabbos meal every single day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, at some point that chunk's really going to bother you. I'd say day one, but most people, right, whatever you're eating, it's going to hit itself, and you'll be like, I don't want it anymore. Because
What about learning
That's spiritual. Remember, every one of the physical things, every one of the physical things has a sense of finiteness to it. Anything physical that exists within this world is finite. If it's finite, you can never have more desires from what that actually is. You'll never always be going for that desire of it. It's always going to die out and you're going to need something else. So what the first stage of Achashverosh is doing is, I want the people to become hedonists. I want them to experience all the lusts that exist within the world. I want them to have that. I want them to feel that. I want them to desire it all. Okay? So that is now Shtiyah Kadar Enu Nes. I'm going to let you drink anything, because that's what everything is all about. La'asos kirtzon ish v'ish. I want every man to do according to every man's ratzon, their own will. What does it mean, their own will? There is no moral law. Whatever you feel is proper, that's correct. You'll define what the law system is for you right now. It's not anarchy yet, right? It's pleasure. You decide what pleasure is, decadence, whatever you want to do, you're going to decide what that pleasure is that you're going to have in your life. Okay? So, I'm skipping around to what he has to say about this whole idea, but his first stage is basically this idea, and basically, at least at this point, even the miser who accumulates gold without spending a nickel on himself, who starves himself and dresses in rags, is also orgiastic. He belongs to the hedonistic society since he cannot satiate his hunger for gold. A man who cannot be satiated is orgiastic. Okay, it doesn't matter who the person is. What is important is that his imagination weaves a halo of infinity around finite goods and senses, mistakenly thinks that he has found self-fulfillment in finite goods and senses. What is going to happen from a society like this, who goes after their own desires, that society is going to feel bored. And that society is going to need something else to make them feel good again. That is going to lead to a society who is not going to have a problem creating a new moral law for themselves. And that new moral law, which even says about murder is okay, is going to be okay with it. He points out that this happened in the 20s and 30s in Germany. And when that happened, those people were going after these things, which eventually paved the way to allowing a guy like Hitler, Yamach Shalom, to come to power. Someone is diabolical like that, just like Haman comes to power over here. And Haman is going to be the one who's going to ask people to bow down to him. And we see, again, with the things that happen, again, with the Holocaust, similar power things that happen over here. So what he's going to lead to, which we're out of time for now, is that society number 1 is going to lead to society number 2, is a society that wants to overtake the world, what we call it communism, Marxism, or anything like this, a society that puts no human pleasure has any value anymore, and now just simply puts in that there's another power in charge that everyone has to pay homage to. That's going to be why chapter 1 is going to start with this, lead us into bringing Esther into the story, but then bringing out Haman, because Haman is now going to define a new society, and that new society is going to take over the entire populace, and no one's going to even know that it actually happened to them. Nobody's going to know. Ve'ir Shushan Navocha, the people of Shushan were in a desperate state, but otherwise people didn't even realize what happened, what actually shifted within their world. So it's just this is where we're stopping for today. There's more to discuss. The second half of society, the first half society is, as Soloveitchik points out, is the one what we call the one who's into all of their physical things. That first half of society is like Chava, Eve eating from the tree, where now we're defining a new moral law. That is going to lead to the flood of Noach, okay, because now every man is for themselves. They're taking wives, women that they want. Remember the story over here. Achashverosh is setting out an edict. In the story of the flood, all the giants of the land started taking women that they wanted at their own will, doing whatever they wanted. That's the flood. That's society number 1. After you hit society number 1, you go into society number 2. That's known as the Dor HaFlaga, the Tower of Babel. Tower of Babel, where they're going to have the state controls everything, and everyone's going to give in to the state. That's going to be, hopefully we'll discuss that next week, but for now this is our first stage of understanding what the city of Shushan and the world is like in the story of Purim.